a brief overview of what user experience design is, some of the goals of what the class is going to cover. But before that, I kind of want to gauge what your interest level in design is. If you're just taking the class for the credit, that's fine too. Hopefully we can persuade you over to the design side of things. But why don't we just start with you, Alex? What kind of got you started with this class?
Well, I needed the credit for one thing, and it actually sounded pretty interesting.
Cool.
Yeah, that's the same thing, except for I really do want to get something out of this class a lot, so yeah,
Right.
I'm horribly interested in
I'm always interested in learning different parts of it.
Great.
Right now for my job, I kind of got a website thrown at me that I have to host and do all sorts of things that I had completely no training on, and so I'm kind of learning as I go, and I'm finding it's the thing about my job that I like the most. So that's kind of, I guess, what brought me here. So what was your question? What about design?
Yeah, what interest level do you have in design, and what kind of?
What was the phrase you used? Terrifically interested?
Yeah.
Good phrasing.
Yeah, I think just because you guys are still in school, I've been in the real world of the workforce for about 6 years now, and I'm finding that people that have skills are the people that are employed. I've always been employed, but having a skill set that's useful is what I guess draws me to it, and the fact that it has an aspect of creativity to it as well. So.
Absolutely. Cool. Great answer.
And I was developer, so I'm very interested in design.
Yeah, that's definitely very connected. Okay, good. Good to hear. Hopefully we can kind of talk about how design will help you specifically. So just to start out, I'll just introduce myself a little bit. I'm Zarin Ficklin. There's my email and my Twitter handle if you want to get in touch with me ever. So this timeline, you can't see it all on this projector, so I'll just tell you what it says. I studied computer science at Weber State. I got my first designer/developer job in 2011 with a company called Scan. They have a QR code reading app. It's like the top QR code reading app on the App Store, and they got $1.3 million in funding from Google. So they're a really cool company. Kind of the same time I was working for them, I was doing freelance design and development. And actually before that, I worked at a bookstore, and I was studying computer science. I knew I wanted to do something with computers, and with Matt, my partner, who some of you have met, he kind of wanted some help on designing this web app that he had, and so I got really interested in it, almost obsessed. I would spend like 4 to 6 hours after work in school every day just like practicing and learning and reading online, and loved it. I couldn't get enough. So did freelance work until I could quit my retail job and do that full time. And then towards the end of 2011, that web app that I mentioned before, Matt and I turned it into a business. It's called Beside You Forever. It's basically a web app that allows engaged couples to build custom personal wedding websites, kind of themed around their wedding photography. So we started that business, and we were both getting so busy with freelance work that we decided to just join everything together into a company called HQ. So this is Scan, that first company that I worked for. Learned a lot. They were based in Provo and eventually moved to San Francisco, so that's when we parted ways because I didn't want to go there, and I kind of wanted to do my own thing. This is just a screenshot of HQ, the company that I run right now. So we build websites, web apps, and mobile apps. And we kind of market ourselves as user experience design. That's kind of what sets us apart. So anyway, that's what we do all day, and I absolutely love it. So I'm super excited to teach this course. This is some of our team. We actually have a couple new guys now. Some of them are designers, some of them are developers. But the developers, we try and teach design, and the designers, we try and teach a little bit of development. So whether you have a design background or a development background or neither, it's, from my point of view, it's super valuable to have background in both. So whether you want to do design or not, if you're a developer, having a little bit of design background can get you more money. making you more valuable to companies and more hireable. So hopefully that's something that you can get out of this course if that's where you're at. So anyways, these are just a couple screenshots of work that we've done. This is a mobile app that we just did, a web store interface, another mobile app. This was a web app that tells you like your credit and business scores, or your credit scores for business and personal accounts. We do iPad, we do Android, iPhone, lots of different things. It's super fun. I love it. So anyway, first thing I want to talk about is why design matters. And there are a lot of reasons. First, I want to kind of talk about what the design industry is like right now. There's an article, if you're interested, you can Google it. It's by Fast Co. Called Why Good Design is Finally a Bottom Line Investment. Awesome article. I'll read, this is a quote from it. It says, Silicon Valley is currently engaged in an all-out talent war over designers. The reason is there just aren't very many that are good. And so anyone that has design skills is in very high demand right now. And that's as true here as it is in Silicon Valley. In fact, we're trying to hire designers right now, but it's hard to find good ones. And if you're a developer that also designs, like you can get a job anywhere that you want. It's not hard at all. These are some companies that were focused on design from the start and are very successful, which is kind of a new thing. 10 years ago, most companies didn't care about design when they were starting out. It was kind of an afterthought. Like once they got going, they're like, okay, let's try and make this look good. But there's newer companies like Instagram and Pinterest and Square and Path who have founders that were designers, and they really focused on design before they even started. And that was kind of the distinguishing attribute that set them apart from competitors. Instagram especially. There were a lot of other photo apps when Instagram came out, but Instagram focused on user experience, and not just design. So an example of that is with Instagram, when you add a filter, it takes time to apply that filter, and it also takes time to upload the photo. And when Instagram started, I think it was 2 years ago, phones weren't very fast, and so to upload a photo to the web and apply a filter took a long time. And Instagram thought about the user experience and how users actually use their app, and they built their app so that the photo would be uploading in the background while you were choosing a filter and while you were adding a caption. And nobody else did that. And so because of that, everybody thought like, oh wow, this app is super fast. And it really wasn't any faster than anybody else, but they thought about the user experience. Because of that, they sold for $1 billion to Facebook. So good success story. Another quote from that article that I really liked. The success of Pinterest and Microsoft both hinge on how well they intuit what users want. And that's really what user experience is about, determining what users want and building for that. I know it seems like, well, 3 of you at least are going into development, so this might not be as applicable, but just to show kind of a brief salary range of what designers are at right now. I think this is from careers.com or wherever. These numbers range. Lowest is 46, but that's for graphic designer versus UI designers and UX designers make a lot more. It looks like typical range here is 84 to 117. And that, in Utah at least, I know that's definitely accurate. As a freelancer, I know designers that charge 120 an hour, and 75 is pretty typical. So if you're talented, you can make a lot of money. Has anybody been to Quora.com before or know what Quora is? Okay, it's a question and answer site. I love it. Somebody asked, what would the ideal web technology startup team be composed of? The very top answer has 297 votes, said hacker, hustler, designer. Hacker, hustler just is lingo for a business guy and a developer and a designer. So one of each. If you had asked this question 5 years ago even, most people would leave designers out. Typically that's a hire that would have happened a lot later. But now design is being a core part of building technology companies. So having those design skills is very important, especially if you're interested in startups or kind of smaller businesses. Okay, and if you're a developer, like I mentioned, if you even have a little bit of design sense, you're already infinitely more valuable than most developers. I can't tell you how many developers I work with that just have zero design sense whatsoever. And actually, I mean, it loses us money because we have to spend a lot more time fixing their problems. So even a developer that has minimal common sense with design is a lot more valuable to companies. And I've talked to a lot of different companies that we work for, and they all say the same thing. So if you can show even minimal skill, I guarantee you'll get a better job and better pay. And then the second point is your products will be better overall. There's so many awesome apps that we've run into that have really impressive backends, and the development that went into them is really impressive, but people don't download them because they're not designed well, and people don't know how to use them. So, very important. So, all that being said, this is kind of what I want to focus on with this course. 3 things. So, UX is the abbreviation for user experience, and we'll kind of talk about what the difference is between user experience and user interface, which is UI here in a minute. So I want to talk about fundamentals for user experience. A lot of that will be kind of higher level theory, and then we'll also do a lot of classes on user interface design. Some of that will be the design aspect in Photoshop, and some of that will be front-end development in HTML, CSS, and a little bit of JavaScript. So I'd like to do as much hands-on as possible because I like theory a lot, but to have a marketable skill, you have to get your hands dirty and actually play with stuff. So we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But that's kind of my goals for this course. Any questions so far? Okay, we'll dive in deeper. So first question, what is user experience design? When I first kind of got into this industry, I heard all these buzzwords passed back and forth: user experience, interface design, visual designers, user interface, and I really I all thought they were the same thing, like it's just all design. But there are a lot of different definitions, so that's kind of what we'll talk about. So UX, user experience, is how the user feels about the experience with the product or service. In a lot of ways, it's almost like the brand of your product or service. How does somebody feel when they use it? Are they frustrated? Are they happy with it? Is it easy? Is it simple? These are all a part of what user experience is. This is a graphic I found online. It's kind of confusing, which is ironic because it's about user experience design. But if you kind of stare at it for a little while, it makes sense. So there's all these different pieces that fit together that are a part of user experience design. So information architecture, what information is the most important, what information users see first versus second or third or last, the actual architecture. So with software, this would be kind of the back end. There's industrial design, human factors, sound, human-computer interaction, visual design, content. So the point is, all of these are what user experience design is. It's taking all those pieces together and putting them in one thing, and then how do users feel about that? Here's another graphic that I saw that's a little simpler. Again, a lot of these are similar. Human factors, human to computer interaction, ergonomics, system performance, design, marketing. So going back to Instagram as an example, Instagram didn't succeed just because it looks cool, but also because they had that faster loading time trick that they had. That's part of the user experience. Users were happier with it because it seemed to go faster. So hopefully that clears that up a little bit. User interface, on the other hand, is a piece of user experience. So this is kind of saying the same thing. UX design deals with the overall experience associated with the use of a product or service, whereas the user interface deals with a specific user interface of a product or service. So the UI can be a component of user experience, but a lot of user experiences don't have a user interface. I know that's kind of a mouthful. So I like this analogy, using a car. So this in a car, this would be the user interface. The car dashboard, the steering wheel, all the tools you need to actually interface with the car. whereas the user experience is a combination of things. So Jeep sells this image of if you have a Jeep, you can go off-roading, you can go on these adventures, you can ride with the top down, you can go on the rocks. All of that is part of the experience, where the dashboard and the steering wheel is just the interface to do that. Hopefully that makes sense. So from a development standpoint, some of the fundamentals is what I want to talk about are not only how to make your application look good, but how to make the experience more enjoyable for the users. So here's an example, a checkout screen. It's one thing to design it to look nice and be clean and simple. It's another thing to design the user experience to where it's streamlined, fast, easy, and not a pain. Because most people hate these. It just sucks. So as an example, a lot of checkout screens can look like this, where they want to know like every detail about your life. And usually you don't need all that information. I've sold things online and you don't need a lot of things that they ask for. It's like, I don't need to know what country you live in. How is that important to me? I can tell from analytics on who's visiting my site from different countries. So if you can simplify this process, the user experience is better. So here's a good example. All they ask for is your card number, expiration date, CVC code, and they'll need your email and name as well. But it's a lot simpler. And so if you can make the user experience better, more people are going to buy from you and you'll make more money. So that's why, going back to that article, the title of the article was why design is becoming a bottom line expense. A lot of companies are figuring out that if their user experience is better, they make a lot more money. Which is surprising that it's taken that long for people to kind of get that. So that said, I kind of want to dive into some basic principles, and we'll kind of go into these more in depth as we kind of go through more classes. The focus of this class is going to be more geared towards web applications, websites, and mobile apps, although it can definitely be applied to a lot of other fields, whether it's industrial design, or traditional software, or whatever. But since web and mobile is what I focus on, that's from my experiences. So, okay, it's a little bit hard to see. Here are 8 weather apps. Which one do you think has the best user experience just by looking at those? Any thoughts?
Yeah, the weather.
Okay, which one is that? That's
The first one.
The first one, okay.
Maybe the third.
The third one?
Is that the one you guys made? Is that the third one?
No, we didn't make any of these.
You just showed me this one.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Yeah, those actually look really similar. I kind of like the first one, too.
Yeah.
Any
Bottom left.
bottom left? Okay. Any reasons why? What do you like about them?
I like the second to last. When you hold your phone and you hold it like this, they've got a little empty space for something there, and so you can still see. Like I hold my phone like this all the time, and so they've got their, the week right here, and then the top part right here, which is where I generally look to begin with. That's
Okay.
why I like it.
Yeah, good answer. That's great. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I like the bottom left too.
Bottom left?
Very simple, gives you the full 5 days. Those are exactly what's happening.
Okay.
It's hard to tell from this image, but the reason I like the first one better is because the background changes with what weather conditions, so it gives
Mhm.
this feel to it.
Okay. Those are all really good answers. My pick, and this is biased, is the 8th one, and I'll tell you why. So the first 7 all look awesome. I've downloaded a million weather apps. A lot of them have really cool designs. The problem is I download it, I look at it and say this is awesome, and then I never use it again. The 8th one is an app called Dark Rain, and most of what it does is through push notifications, which most developers are kind of afraid of because it feels like, oh, I'm bugging them. What this app does is it will only give you push notification when the weather is changing. So for example, it's hard to read, but it says, umbrella, you should take your umbrella today. That's all it is. Part of this is kind of a form versus factor thing. The user experience with the 8th one is the most practical, even though the first 7 look awesome. And some of the points that you mentioned are actually really good user experience elements. But for me personally, even though they have cool interactions inside the app, I don't open my weather apps ever. So the 8th one is most useful to me. So there's a balance that has to be had between usability and aesthetics. From a designer's point of view, I can tell you it's really tempting. Like when I get a project, I think like, oh, I want to like design all these cool things and all these cool like tricks that I found out, or make it look really awesome. But in a lot of cases, that's not the best choice for what the project's goals are. So it's kind of a balance between the two. So here's an example. Here's a site that has kind of a pretty innovative design. Each of these photos is a link to a different section in their website, which most websites don't do, and it once in the design awards actually. However, it's not a usable site because people get here and they're like, well, what the heck do I do? Tons of people get lost. They want to find the shop, and you don't even know like which of these to click on. You have to read the tiny font on top of each of these photos to even buy something. So another good example of a site that's cool and has great design, but not a good user experience. Whereas this site, if we could play with it, they do some cool innovative things as far as JavaScript animations go, but they don't try and reinvent the wheel. The navigation is still in a familiar place. It's easy to do what you need to do. So that's something to keep in mind. Something we'll talk about later is usability has to come before how cool your app or your website looks. Alignment and spacing. So 90% of, probably 95% of bad designs have this problem. This is why they look bad. People can't put their finger on what's wrong with the site. It's usually just a simple matter of realigning and respacing things so that they're even and lined up. Just a quick example, here's Instagram site. There's so many designs that I come across where, for example, this section might be a little bit here to the left and it doesn't quite line up with this. And same with that, that lines up right there. Whereas if this was moved over even like 10 pixels, and that was moved over 10 pixels, something would feel off. And unless you're looking for it, you might not be able to figure out what's wrong exactly. Another example, if you notice the spacing here is the exact same width as the spacing right here. Whereas if this was moved up just a little bit, it might feel off. And unless you're looking for that, you can't really see what's wrong with it. So if you find any bad site, take a look at how things are lined up and aligned, and I guarantee that there will be something that's a little bit off, and that's part of the reason it doesn't look good. Here's another example. This one is actually a bad example because the screen is tilted, but you can kind of see visually these lines, they're all lined up. It's just easier on the eyes, and you can kind of point towards important things by using those alignments. So that's something we'll get into more detail in a later class as well. Here's a tweet from, in my opinion, the best designer, user interface designer in Utah. Their company is really cool. They have some awesome clients. They just did an app design for National Geographic and got the App Design Award of the Year. They're a Park City-based company. But anyway, their lead designer tweeted this. He says, as an interface designer, there's a solid chance you'll spend 76.3% of your time holding down Shift whilst tapping on your arrow keys. So in Photoshop, Shift and the arrow keys are kind of how you nudge elements, and it's like by 10 pixels, so it's barely at all. And that's so true. It feels like I'm like staring at my screen for 10 minutes, just kind of moving things up and moving them down and moving to this side. So it's surprising how much of design is just lining things up and spacing them until they feel right. Okay, next one is white space. Another very, very common design problem that I see all the time. For whatever reasons, developers and designers feel like they need to cram as much as possible into this small space as possible, where in most cases you really don't need to, and you actually lose impact by that. Kind of a semi-related example is blocks of text. We do a lot of website projects for clients, and we'll ask for copy to put on their website, and it's always way too much text. They'll put paragraphs of text about their business, and what I tell them is if you have too much, people aren't going to read it at all. So it's better to have 3 lines of text than 3 paragraphs of text, because they're just not going to read it. I don't read it if I see too much, unless it's like an article that I'm really interested in. Same applies for elements. So, example, Apple is really well known for this. Any of their product pages, they use a lot of white space. So the only things on this whole area is just iPhone 5 and their subheading, and that's it. And for them, it's incredibly effective. Another example, this is Facebook's a product page they have.